What is up, everybody? It's Justin here at S&K Greenhouse. I'm down at the nursery today. It's the middle of summer, and I thought I'd talk about 3 heat-loving perennials that you need to know about. So even if you're a first-time gardener, I bet you've heard the term hibiscus, and that's what these are right here around me. And these are not the tropical hibiscus, but rather the perennial hardy type. And these are all the summerific series that Proven Winners came out with. Now, it's probably pretty obvious why this is one of my favorite perennials. I mean, look at the size of these blooms. They're almost as large as a dinner plate. And not only that, they come in so many different colors. You have all different shades of reds, pinks, and whites. Now, as tropical as these plants look, they're actually hardy all the way down to zone 4, and they can thrive in more temperate climates all the way up to zone 9. If you're at your local garden center and you're shopping for these, they actually go by another name called rose mallow. And try to get the newer varieties of rose mallow, not the older, because the newer varieties, like the summerific series, they have buds that develop all the way up the stem and throughout the stem. And the older varieties just tend to form on top of the stem, which means they have a very, very short bloom time, where these will bloom all summer long, even going into the late fall time. Now, when it comes to plant care with these, there are a couple things I'd like to mention. One, they do love water. They'll even grow in sumpy or boggy-like conditions, and as well as well-drained soil also. But when you're getting them established, they're going to require consistent watering. Also, give these plants some elbow room. Even the dwarf varieties are going to grow 3 to 4 foot tall, and the more standard varieties are going to grow up to 6 feet tall, and they don't want to be overcrowded competing with other plants. So as long as you got partial or full sun and enough space for this thing to grow, this is one heat-loving perennial you should definitely try. Next up, we have the Canna Lily. And let me start off by saying, if you're in zones colder than 7, these are most likely going to be an annual for you. But here in the southeast, these are very popular perennials. Canna lilies are a type of rhizomatous perennial, which means its roots are going to spread outward and new shoots will emerge from the ground, ultimately causing this to spread out horizontally. So keep this in mind if you're planting them in a landscape. They're going to need a good bit of room because they're going to continue to spread and multiply. But that doesn't mean you can't plant them in containers. A lot of gardeners like to use them in the center of a pot and make a flower arrangement around it. And even if it spreads and gets too crowded in the pot, you can always split it and give the extra pieces to a friend. Not only do I love canna lilies because they can take the hot, brutal sun, they're also much like the hibiscus in that they can grow in pretty much any soil condition. If it's sumpy, they do well. If it's well drained, they do well. And they also like slightly acidic soil. So if you're in the south, this plant is perfect. This canna lily in particular hasn't bloomed yet, but when it does, it's going to have a variegated red and yellow iris-like bloom, and it is absolutely stunning. You'll also notice that the foliage is very variegated with this chocolatey brown. Most canna lilies are just a solid green, but this is a newer variety I kind of wanted to show off. We just got it in the nursery, and I think it's just fantastic without blooms. And lastly, who could forget about coneflowers? This variety right here is called Kismet. It's a red variety, but one thing you'll find out about coneflowers, there are so many different colors. Reds, whites, pinks, oranges, you name it. Coneflowers, aka echinacea, are a popular choice amongst gardeners for good reason. Not only do they bloom for months and months on end, they're also very easy to grow, they're drought tolerant, and if you like cut flowers, this is a really good choice. I also got to mention that coneflowers are great pollinators, so if you could use a few extra bees around the garden, these are great to plant around. Unlike the first 2 perennials I mentioned, coneflowers do not get enormous. They are going to grow about 2 feet tall and 2 feet wide. These are great in part to full sun, and they usually start blooming in June, and once they start blooming, you're going to have blooms all the way up until the first frost. At that point, I like to shear mine back level with the ground, but some gardeners actually like the look of the dried seed heads, so in that case, you could wait till spring to prune them back. And each year that they return, they're going to come back fuller and fuller. So at some point in time, you might want to get your shovel and thin them out if they become too clumpy. Echinacea can grow in zones 3 through 9, making them extremely versatile, folks. This is going to be for a lot of gardeners. There you go, 3 of my favorite heat-loving perennials. Let me know down in the comments, what's a perennial that does great for you in the summertime? If you like this video and want to see more of them, we would be honored if you would hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Until next time, become a plant person.